Susan Strange, Britain's most influential scholar of world politics in the late 20th century, was one of globalization's fiercest critics. In a 1997 essay entitled "The Erosion of the State," Strange took exception to a cadre of economists at the time who argued that globalization was globaloney, a myth or an illusion, and thus of little real consequence to Western democracies. Contemporary globalization, Strange argued, was not their grandfather's globalization. It was not just the scope and form that differed from earlier versions of globalization, she argued. It was that the globalization of the 1990s was undermining the state as a social safety net and producing a democratic deficit not only in Europe but in America, Japan, the entire globalized economy. Too much authority for managing the world economy was being pooled at the supranational level and delegated to international bureaucrats. Too little thought was being given to how democracies' headlong pursuit of trade liberalization, cross-border investment, and multilateral governance was weakening their capacity to protect the vulnerable in society. Western leaders, Strange concluded, had to restore a measure of social justice denied by the market for those left behind. Strange's worries about the risks that unbridled globalization posed to democratic solvency were prescient. As we noted in Chapter 2, the insolvency gap between Western governments' international ambitions and what their publics were willing to support steadily worsened over the next quarter-century. Western leaders' growing reliance on economic integration and multilateral governance fueled anti-globalist sentiment, and as we have seen, weakened the liberal order's domestic supports in Western electorates. In this chapter, we explain why this happened. We argue that Western governments' turn toward globalism provoked a domestic political backlash because it was stripped of many of the social guarantees and protections that liberal internationalism originally entailed, and, importantly, that Cold War geopolitical imperatives reinforced. We show that the stronger Western government's commitment to social protection and the more threatening the international environment, the more support liberal internationalism receives from parties and voters. This is why political support in Western democracies for the liberal international order ran so strong during the Cold War, and why it has weakened considerably since. In developing our explanation for the decline of Western support for the liberal order, we focus considerable attention on the collapse of the Soviet Union and its implications for the liberal order.